We promised and we're going to deliver on a Talanoa Hufanga show. It is Orange and Blue today, Monday edition. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason talking about how Hufanga and others could help make this Broncos defense the best in the league.
Well, he's what Sean Payton likes to call a first responder at safety as opposed to like a second responder. First responder being somebody who's aggressive and reads things quickly and is there first, being aggressive, making plays on the ball, and not somebody who's kind of coming in to clean up, right? So somebody who attacks, somebody who's starting the playmaking part of things rather than just finishing off, as it were. Someone who's going to set the tone. That's Talanoa Hufanga. And I think it was telling, Cease, that when the Broncos had their first OTA last week, that on the defensive side, it was Talanoa Hufanga who was the first to meet the media. Certainly the big off-season acquisition, but really telling in terms of how they expect him not only to be a huge part of the defense, but also one of the leaders of the defense coming in there as well.
Yeah, leader on the defense. It sounds like Broncos football. Broncos football has historically been marked with great safety play. Hufanga is here to continue that tradition.
Yeah, going all the way back to the first days of the franchise. I mean, the first Broncos team back in 1960 had a safety who ended up in the Ring of Fame, Goose Gonsolin. I mean, that's the thing. It's been interrupted at times, but most Broncos teams have had a tempo-setting safety, a safety that was one of the better ones in the league. It's part of the connective tissue of the Broncos over the years, and you just hope that Hufanga is worthy of that lineage and that he can live up to it. Whether he is going to have a big role in determining whether this defense can be that kind of top 5 defense that you're hoping it's going to be this year.
You mentioned first responders, Mace. We know that during the postseason and actually in December, this team was weaker against the run. When you have a guy like Hufanga, I want people to think of TJ Ward, but like supercharged. A guy that's going to find the play. He's going to be like a heat-seeking missile, plays with no regard for his personal safety, and he's an enforcer. However, he's also a guy that you can trust in roaming if there's any sort of coverage situation that arises. But I love the personality, the tenacity that comes along with this addition.
First of all, it's hard to imagine a supercharged version of TJ Ward because he was like, a human nitro boost out there when he played a decade ago. I mean, shoot. The guy was a human fireball.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly he's in that vein, is Hufanga. And before injuries took their toll on him, you were talking about somebody who was flirting with being in the defensive player of the year conversation. This was an all-pro caliber player before injuries set in. Unfortunately, hasn't been the same player since then. And look, this is why the Broncos have him. If he had not been injured, the 49ers would have found a way to keep him.
Oh, yeah.
Let's make this clear. He is a Bronco because his post-injury form has yet to match his pre-injury form. And so there is an element of risk involved here. The risk being that he doesn't get back to what he once was. You're counting on him getting closer to being back to that pre-injury form because now he's another year removed. Like this is, the pattern is it can take 2 years before you're all the way back. That's what the Broncos are counting on in terms of why they bring in Hufanga and what they're expecting this year. They are expecting that full year beyond to actually allow them to see the true Hufanga, because what we saw last year didn't come close to his pre-injury form.
Right. And you mentioned why Denver has him, but at his post-OTA press conference, He also said why he chose Denver, Mace, and I think there's some insight here that we all can take away from Hufanga and the choice of Denver.
Yep, let's give that a listen. And that's actually a question that I asked him specifically: what separated Denver from other teams that he was looking at in the free agency process?
I think it's amazing here. I think it has everything you could think of. Has beautiful scenery, then the team itself, the organization, the owners, and great players. You look at a guy that just stood up here before me, Bo. You look at what he's capable of and what he can go do down the field. Like, it's exciting, you know. And no, it's not no disrespect to Brock Purdy and what I'm done. I know people will take it the wrong way. I love my guy Brock. I signed with a new team. That's exactly how it is. But you ask that question, and I'm out here with a team that has a bunch of guys that I'm excited to play with.
Well, I like that. Like, also, there's an awareness there. And I think this is another thing. You talk about Hufanga being a player on the field who plays with a great awareness. That awareness is just who he is, period, because he's answering a question and he says that, and he knows that there are going to be people out there. You and I aren't those people.
No.
But there are people out there who would have heard something like that, and oh boy, they would have taken that and run with it and turned that into a clickbait headline. Oh my, would they have done that?
Yes.
People, and probably there are some people out in the Bay Area that would have done that, and it would have been unpleasant.
Yeah, but he got out in front of it because he knows, because he's aware and he realizes what's going on. But also, I subscribe to ball knows ball. Now, that's not 100% Mace, because we remember Von Miller loved everybody. But Hufanga didn't have to bring up Bo.
Yeah.
You ask him that question with the intent of, I don't know what his answer is going to be. But the fact that Bo was part of his answer, the facility, the weather, the owners, yes. But when he brings up Bo, I think that's very telling.
It was an intentionally open-ended question. I like to ask questions that are as open-ended as possible. That, okay, you can take this in any direction you want. Because I don't know what you're going to say. I mean, I think those are the best kind. I mean, just that have a
and you're not trying to get him to say a certain thing. And there are questions where it's like, I'm writing about this, I need you to say this. No, you ask him like, hey, why Denver? And to bring up Bo unprompted is
something. I'm not gonna we all ask those questions sometimes, or you're kind of leading, because again, you're writing a story, you need an answer, and you know what the answer is. You need that quote, you need that confirmation. You kind of feel a little dirty, crazy asking that, but you have to.
Right.
In this case, it was just tabula rasa. It could have been anything. It could have been the weather. Could have been Sean Payton. Could have been Vance Joseph. Could have been, I want to play in a secondary Pat Surtain. I had no clue what he was going to say. The fact that the player he mentioned was Bo, that's telling right there. The word's out on Bo. When you hear it from a guy like Hufanga, and you mentioned Von Miller, like, Von's very much, he's very in the moment. He's going to offer praise. And Von last week, when he was asked about Bo Nix at his event up in Commerce City, he did offer a lot of praise of Bo. I mean, so it doesn't surprise me that you hear that. And certainly he's one of the people around the league. He's gone against Bo Nix. He's had to try to rush him, as he did back in the playoffs in January. So he knows what it's like going against him. But Hufanga hasn't gone against Bo Nix. And there's some respect there. So players watch, they see, they know. Like you said, ball knows ball. And that's a sign as well. And so it also tells you that Bo Nix was a reason why players decided to come here. I'm actually hoping that when we do go out to Broncos later this week, I'm actually hoping that we hear from Evan Engram, because he may have a similar answer as well. Now, him being a pass catcher, a tight end, it's a little different. Like, what Bo Nix does is more germane to his job. But hearing it from Talanoa Hufanga, that's really interesting, I think.
Yeah, because if it was, and I'm not going to name anyone specifically, but we'll go into the years past, Trevor Siemian or whoever, maybe a guy doesn't say that. Maybe he does. I don't know. But the fact that Bo gets that, you use the word respect, I think it's a signal as to what the rest of the league, the players, think about what's going on in Denver.
Yeah. Guys see him in prime time type situations, national TV situations. I mean, you think about, say, that Bengals game on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday night there in late December. So it's a window where a lot of the league was probably watching. You think about the Monday night game against Cleveland. Maybe not Bo Nix's best game. There were, had some picks, but everyone also saw that dart to Marvin Mims Jr., right? Whew. And guys are sitting at home watching that game. Woo! I mean, you're picturing the reaction to
They're
that
fans
throw.
like us.
Right. Yeah. Guys watch the game. Guys who love the game watch the game and allow themselves to admire things they see, just like you at home watch the game and allow yourselves to admire what you see. We're all fans to some degree, right? You may view the game technically from a different perspective than a player does, and vice versa. But if you love the game, you do have that emotional reaction. I mean, shoot, watch the Manning cast and you see how Peyton and Eli view it. They're still fans to this day, right?
Right.
So, of course, they're, so think of it that way. And, of course, when Bo Nix makes a play there in prime time, or when guys are studying film and maybe they're watching a Broncos opponent, and they see maybe Bo Nix making a play, it gets noticed. So so the word is getting around that number 10 is pretty good. And for Talanoa Hufanga, part of the reason he's a Bronco. Another thing that comes together very nicely for Talanoa Hufanga, we all love it when a plan comes together, that he gets to be around some familiar guys. Of course, DJ Jones came here a few years ago. Mike McGlinchey came here in 2023, but also coming in the same free agency class is Dre Greenlaw. And Dre Greenlaw, somebody that Talanoa Hufanga knows very well from the defensive side, but it's not just that they share the same defense. They are very close friends and very close in the locker room as well.
Well, a lot of people don't know. He was my locker mate at 49ers, and he is my locker mate here as well. So something about him that's just a lot of people don't understand is how nice he is as a person, first and foremost. Like, off the field, he is amazing. You won't think that when you watch him play because he's just very aggressive and is violent. And that's something that I love, the way that he can just flip the switch, but somebody that I'm truly blessed to be able to work with every day, for sure.
Okay, so flips the switch. This is one thing that you like. You like guys that are aggressive. They can turn it on. They can be that bad so-and-so on the field, but then off the field can be nice, respectful, good human beings.
Good teammate.
Yeah. That's exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for the guys that can go full speed, balls to the wall on the field, and then off the field they can be good citizens. That's the needle you're always trying to thread, that when you're trying to build a team. But also, you think about this defense. You mentioned December and how the Broncos got manhandled December, and then throw out that Kansas City game against the Scrubs. Doesn't matter. December, and then the playoff game in Buffalo, where the Broncos were obliterated so thoroughly by Buffalo controlling the game on the ground to the point where it was the worst time of possession discrepancy against the Broncos in over 40 years. That's how thoroughly Buffalo dominated them on the ground. The score line, frankly, flattered the Broncos a little bit. Could have been worse. So it's a defense that by the end of the season needed some aggression, needed some thump. So you bring in these two guys. Yes, they're both coming off of injury, and that's part of why they're available. And certainly the Niners did try to keep Greenlaw. Of course, they did go fly out to Texas to try to convince him to stay, but that failed. But they're available, and they weren't re-signed before. partially because of the 49ers cap issues, partially because of the injuries. So they prioritized other players, other needs in terms of roster building. So you are taking some risk here. You are rolling the dice, but if it pays off, you have changed the DNA of your defense a bit, which is really hard to do. You have made it more aggressive. You are attacking, and you are really then doing what Vance Joseph wants to do. Vance Joseph wants to attack. We talked about it last year. Zach Allen saying that VJ was going to more of a simple attacking mode. And for 3 months, it worked. And then when you reached that moment where an injury to Riley Moss kind of pushed it over the edge, they'd already lost Alex Singleton in September. They were able to withstand that. When you added losing Riley Moss, that was what pushed it over the edge. So you can always withstand maybe one injury, but then there's always a point where you get pushed too far. And that was the bridge too far for the Broncos. But now, you're deeper when you add Greenlaw and you add Hufanga. Some starters are now backups. You're more fortified. You've added some more aggressive players. You're aggressive at all 3 levels of the defense. You've got guys who are going to attack. No excuses, but you've got a VJ type of defense. He has the best collection of pieces that he's had. I'd say probably the best collection of pieces he's had going into a season, best collection of raw pieces since 2017. Because, hey, the raw pieces he had going into 2017 when he was Broncos head coach on defense, they were pretty dadgum good because you still had to keep Talib and Chris Harris Jr. and Von Miller and Shane Ray. But remember, Shane Ray hurt his wrist right there at the start of the year.
Yep.
And you had Shaq Barrett, of course. So you had some depth there. Some very good raw pieces coming back to that defense. The problem was, of course, you had an offense that was a mess, right? And then things got out of control. Certainly, you hope things end up working better. Of course, VJ didn't call the defense that year. Joe Woods did. VJ is going to have a lot more control over this defense, calling it. This is his best shot to have a truly elite defense. It's his best shot to say, this is what I can do, period. It's his best shot to become a head coach again. He has all the pieces. This is why we say, is there anyone on the hot seat? It's Vance Joseph. But is there anyone who has a lot to gain professionally and has everything in front of him and can get back to that high level and can get so much out of this season? Vance Joseph. Yeah, it's all there for the taking for him. He could have the number 1 defense in football. He has all the pieces there to do it.
Yep.
But with great power that he has at his disposal on defense, starting with bringing in guys like Hufanga and Greenlaw, becomes great responsibility. I'm going all Spider-Man Uncle Ben on you.
All right. Peter Parker, Miles Morales, either one. Whoever you enjoy as your Spider-Man, we enjoy you. We need to take it to the next level and be the number 1 show on YouTube. I don't say we need 400 million subscribers like Mr. Beast just passed that mark. I don't know if you saw that, Mace, but like
who's Mr. Beast?
Million subscribers.
See, I don't even know who he is, and he's got 400 million subscribers. So he's got more subscribers than there are people in the United States of America. And I don't even know who he is.
Okay, look him up. Either way, we're hoping to improve those YouTube numbers, bump up our subscribers, and well, how do we get folks to help us out doing that?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never
miss a vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammy saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty,